Welcome to the Battlefield build. In this two-part video we're going to show you everything you need to create an ultimate gaming PC worthy of Battlefield 1 and how to put it all together. This PC will be able to run Battlefield 1 over 60 frames a second on ultra settings at 1080p. In this video, part 2, I'm going to show you exactly how to put this thing together, so if you want to follow along at home, you should be able to do so. And the first thing is to grab yourself somewhere to keep any screws so they don't get lost, and then remove the thumb screws from the side panel. It's very simple, and once you've done so, the side panel simply slides off. Once you've done this, it's time to grab your case, turn it round, and then repeat for the other side panel. Once you've got both the side panels off, it's time to put your case to one side and then start working on the motherboard. And to do this, simply grab your motherboard, take it out of the box, and then place the motherboard on top of the box. The reason we do so is so that it actually helps to prevent damage to the motherboard, and it's a lot easier to work on the motherboard outside of the case rather than putting it in there and trying to work in low light. Grab your RAM sticks, line them up with the RAM slots. There's only one way to do this, and then press them down. This will require some force, and just repeat this for all your RAM sticks. Please refer to your motherboard manual though to make sure you're putting them in the right slots. Next up is the processor, and you simply need to grab your processor, line up the arrow with the arrow on the motherboard, and then simply drop it into place. No force required at all. As soon as the processor has been installed, it is time to secure it into place to stop it moving about. It's very simple, simply lower the lever and leave it on the catch. Once you've done this, you now need to start thinking about your CPU cooler, and of course it's going to depend exactly what one you have, so always read the manual because they are very different. The cooler we're using is a Cooler Master 212 LED, and this is an air cooler so it won't require us to mount a radiator to the case, so we can install it all nice and easily before we actually put the motherboard into the case. Simply grab the back plate and then insert it on the back of the motherboard, and then with the pre-supplied screws simply screw onto the back plate, and this will give us something to actually lower the cooler onto. Once we've done this and tightened all 4 screws, you have a little device type thing that you screw onto to really make sure that your screws are down securely. Do this for all 4 points, and then grab your air cooler. Here the assembly is actually really simple. You just have 2 plates that you need to screw onto the bottom of the cooler, and then remove the warning peel off sticker that you really can't miss. Once you've done all of this, your cooler should be ready to mount. The last thing to do is simply remove the pre-supplied fan, as this will clip on later and we do actually need to be able to access those screw points. Grab the thermal paste that came supplied with the cooler and insert a small pea-sized amount on your processor. There are many different ways to do this. I like to spread it around a little bit before lowering, but some people don't, so it's entirely up to you. Then you grab your cooler and then you simply insert it onto the 4 posts before screwing down with a screwdriver in a cross pattern to avoid putting any excess strain on your CPU. You need everything to be fairly tight, but don't go too crazy, as obviously you don't want to damage anything. Now that our CPU cooler is ready to go, we simply need to reattach that fan, and you can add an additional one for push-pull configurations if you do want to do this, and then grab the power cable for your fan and plug it into the CPU header. Of course, if you're using 2 fans, then you'll need to plug the other one in somewhere else. And as soon as you've done all of this, your motherboard combo is pretty much finished, constructed, and ready to go into the case itself. But before we do so, put it to one side a second and then grab the I/O shield and some SATA cables out of the motherboard box. The I/O shield goes on the back of the case. It's a massive hole, you really can't miss it. Just make sure that you're inserting the orientation correctly, as you don't want to just cause yourself a little bit of distress when you realise that you have to then take the motherboard back out, and it saves you a little bit of time. The I/O shield simply inserts into the case with a fair amount of force. It does just literally clip in. There's no screws or anything to worry about here. And then grab your case and then put it into a lowered position so that you can easily get inside. This is where you're going to want to make sure you're working in an area with a large amount of light so you can see what you're doing, but then simply grab the motherboard and then lower it onto the 4 standoffs that come with your case. This case has them pre-supplied and pre-applied, but if you are working on a different case, you might need to insert some standoffs. Then, using the screws that came in the brown box supplied in your case, you're going to want to screw your motherboard down into the case itself. This is very simple, it doesn't take too much time really, and you can find out where all the screws are by looking in your motherboard manual, but it's a standard ATX form factor, so it should be the same if you've ever done it before. And then there you go, you pretty much got your shell ready to go. You're pretty much halfway there, you've got all of the hard stuff out of the way, and just a few more steps we'll have a PC that is working and ready to play Battlefield. Now it's time to grab our case and insert our power supply. If you're using a modular one, then you're going to want to insert the cables before you put it in the case, as you won't really be able to do this easily otherwise. Here you can see we were using some third-party braided cables, but as we've already mentioned, part 1, there was a little bit of disaster whereby the power supply didn't work. But regardless, simply screw your power supply into the back of the case with 4 screws provided, and then it's time to insert our drives. These SSDs simply insert into the quick bays and then drop down into place. The same with all the drives is to connect them, we just need to grab our power connector and our SATA connector, and then plug these onto the back of the drives. They're different ports, so you can't really go too far wrong, but one is for data and one is for power. Once you've added all the drives to your system, you're going to want to make sure that all the cables are going towards the place they're meant to be going. Things like headers will probably want to go down the bottom, whereas the CPU power connections will probably be going at the top. And then once you've got everything plugged in and routed around the side, it's time to actually plug it into the other side by turning the case round and then plugging everything in. The ATX 24 pin is massive and goes towards the middle side of the motherboard on the right hand side, and then the CPU power connection is at the top part of the case. Once you've done that, it's time to plug in those SATA connections that we had left over from those drives, and then things like HD audio and all the front panel connections are connected down the bottom, as well as any leftover case fans that we want to plug in to the motherboard. USB is a big fat blue cable if you're going for USB 3, and then things like power, reset all go down the bottom right hand side of the motherboard. And once you've done all of this, it's then time to insert our graphics card by removing the 2 PCIe slot covers from our case, and then dropping our card down into the PCIe slot itself. You'll hear a strong click when this is done, so you'll know that your graphics card is securely inserted, and then to make sure it is properly secure, you need to screw into the graphics card onto the case with the 2 screws that you just removed. Connecting the power connection is very simple. In this case it was just one PCI connector, and then make sure all your power connections and everything is neat and tidy around the back, as you're going to want to then grab your side panels and then insert them onto the case itself, and there you go, you have a PC that should be ready to go. If you do want to add some LED lighting like I have done here, then these Fantex RGB strips actually connect to the case itself. Once you've got everything ready to go though, you're going to want to grab yourself a USB with Windows 10 preloaded, and you can download this from their website or you can buy it from Amazon or somewhere like that. And then this motherboard actually booted straight into Windows setup anyway, but otherwise you would go into the motherboard and select to boot off the USB drive. And then it's just a case of installing Windows, and this is really simple. You can't really go too far wrong. You will need to make sure that you're installing on the SSD, and you'll probably need to click on Format or New to make sure that Windows actually recognize the drives properly. But it really is very simple. Just make sure you are installing on your SSD, not any hard drives that you may or may not be using. But there we go. That has been how to build this Battlefield machine. I hope it's been very useful for you, and it's definitely a PC that I was very, very proud of. And it played Battlefield very well, and if you haven't seen part 1 you can find out just how well by clicking the little eye in the top right hand corner, and that will take you straight to the video that will show you how well it ran Battlefield. And there we go, that has been the end of this 2-part series. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've noticed that this is a 2-part series rather than the 3. Please let me know down below what you thought of it. And I would like to reiterate that although this was a price performance rig, you can of course make it a little bit cheaper, and that I would still recommend going with the i5 rather than the i7 unless you're going to do any rendering or anything like that. There was a small amount of confusion, but I'm sure that's my fault for not really being clear enough in the previous video. But there we go. A massive thank you to you guys for watching as always, really appreciate it. Like the video if you like it, dislike if you didn't. A massive thank you to everyone that supplied parts for this build, so Cooler Master, Asus, and of course Overclockers UK. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Hit me up on @PC Centric on social media, so Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all those good places. And yeah, subscribe for more videos if you want to see them. So a massive thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video.